Kia ora e hoa mā, kei te whakarongo mai koutou ki Arrow FM, your community access radio station. Te reo irirangi o Wairarapa, ko Michael Aho, and e whai ake nei, Isolation Blues. Well, this morning we're going to be talking with Lucy Cooper. Yep, Lucy Cooper from Recuperate, who you have the pleasure of listening to on occasional Sundays. She's going to be starting again actually this week, so that'll be nice. And many of our program makers will be back in front of the desk from really tomorrow onwards. That looks like Lucy now. Good morning, Lucy.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
I can, beautifully, through my headphones. I've observed protocol.
Good. Yes. Oh, protocol. Okay, hang on. I'd better just because now we've got another person in the room.
Hang on. I've got some antibacterial wipes.
Oh yes, if you would. So level 2, eh? Woohoo!
I know, it's funny. I actually woke up. The kids woke up feeling like it was Christmas Day, and I actually feel a little bit sick. You know, like excited sick.
Yeah, yes, I know.
Could be nerves.
Yeah. So I'm thinking it is a big change, level 2 for all of us, but somebody like yourself who's had to do this whole homeschooling thing, what's that been like?
Well, homeschooling, there's been a lot of creative play. And if we can learn through counting Sylvanians or My Little Ponies, then I'm down with that. And I think actually what we found as a family is level 4 was really straightforward because I've worked the whole period, but my husband, who's a consultant arborist, all his jobs kind of closed down. So he was able to take care of the house and the kids. And so I just stayed up here in my office and worked. And then level 3 came along and he had to go back to work and I'm still at work. And then the kids also need their homeschooling done. So that I found that the most stressful transition was between 4 and 3. The kids didn't notice a thing.
So, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So, but I've got to hand it to the schools. My kids go to Greytown Primary and they have done an incredible job providing the kids with tech. The teachers are on hand, it seems like 24 hours a day. The work programs that they've given the kids are so thoughtful towards the parents and the children, just acknowledging that this is not normal. And I've been really, really grateful to them. They've done Zoom calls with their teacher, in little groups and bigger groups. Some of the things that they can do in terms of learning are just fun, it's just fun stuff. So there's so many people we need to thank, Arrow FM and everybody, but the schools I think have done an incredible job just keeping everybody sane and not having too many expectations of everyone. And I tend to go through life having quite high expectations of myself, a bit hard on myself, but I think this whole period has been a really good lesson in just taking your foot off the pedal, acknowledging when things are difficult and being kind to yourself and others. And I think the schools have done a great job in that respect.
Yeah, I did think as soon as the whole homeschooling thing became a reality, that people needed to be easier on themselves and say, look, the experience in itself is an educational one. We don't have to be ramming home standards and make sure you keep up with your homework. Let it be what it is.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what I've been saying so I've got 2 girls, one's 8 and one's 10. The 10-year-old is so self-motivated, it's scary. Honestly, she could run her own business right now. But I did say to her exactly that. I said, your generation has lived through something that, I think there's one woman in Spain who's 113 and has lived through 3 pandemics or something. But, generally they're a generation that will be, I hope, quite resilient as a consequence of this and have quite different expectations or know that there are other expectations of themselves available other than perfect or you know, or on other unattainable goals. And
Yes,
I
I
don't
know.
know how.
I think, and you've said what a wonderful job schools are doing. I just thought the job's impossible. I didn't know how it would work. For a start, when kids start filtering back to school, keeping social distancing, I don't know how they're going to do it. And I'm just
No.
so grateful that they're tackling it.
Oh, absolutely. And with such enthusiasm and excitement, you know, I'm sure,
Yeah.
you know, behind the scenes, it's been, you know, there's been a few terse words at school. I'm sure there must be, you know, everybody's been under an awful lot of pressure, but they've approached it with such enthusiasm. And I think you're right. I think level 2 is going to be such a test of everybody's ability. I mean, as human beings, we can't keep social distancing is really
No.
hard, isn't it? You know, it's just
Yeah.
almost the
Yeah.
impossible ask. But I think as long as we go into this with the right spirit and be acknowledge that we're probably all going to make mistakes, and some people are going to find our mistakes intolerable, and you know, let's just hope we can just address any infractions of the code in a kind way. I don't want to be told off.
No, I know, but I am being Joanne and I are being more cautious than the law requires us, I think, because as we move into each new level, I think the tendency for many people is to go hog wild. You know, it seems people are desperate to get their takeaways and go to bars and go into swimming pools and rub up against one another. And whilst I understand that urge, I really do think that that we should be thinking of ourselves as all units of society that affect each other. The more careful we are, the better we'll all be.
Absolutely, I think you're right there, and yet I haven't felt this urge to queue at McDonald's or any of those things,
No.
mainly because you know, I just want to ease my way in gently into each level, and you know, just. I found, I don't know about you, Michael, but every time there's been a new announcement or a new announcement's pending, like my emotions are kind of I get super excited, and then there's this kind of weird crash, you know? And so I don't want to have those kind of emotions standing in a queue for my coffee, you know? I'd rather weep in quiet, in my privacy of my own home.
You want to break down at home. I understand that.
Absolutely,
But it's funny how different people are, eh? There was a young girl on television sort of desperately saying that she hasn't had pizza for weeks, and I thought, they don't loom that large for me. I've rather enjoyed doing everything at home, cooking at home, not that we don't do normally. And we look forward soon to, you know, the special treat of going somewhere nice to eat and going to the movies. But it's not like we're a mess because of not having that.
No, exactly. I think everybody's a bit sick of my cooking. It's funny how lockdown has made everything taste the same.
Yes.
Regardless of what I make, it all tastes the same. But we've done a lot of baking, and there's a small child here. Flo, do you want to come and say hello? We're live
Hello,
on air.
Flo.
Hi.
There she
So
is.
you can't hear me. Yeah, she's there. We've done a lot of baking, and that's been interesting. And sometimes all three of the bakers, that's me and the kids, have baked on the same day. So there's an awful lot of cake to get through. But you're right. I haven't felt that. I definitely want to spend local. That's certainly something I'm really conscious of wanting to do now. But yeah, I've also been quite conscious that if I'm in a queue clamoring for my coffee or my burger or whatever, then that's, you know, I'm almost another level. I'm adding to the stress that there must be for shopkeepers and the hospitality industry. It must be very stressful for them learning, you know, what they can do and can't do, how they're to provide for everyone. So, you know, I think I admire all the industries that have had to adapt to this new way of living. It's just an incredible feat of engineering. Actually, me and my oldest daughter, we walk most nights, and we've really enjoyed the quietness of all the levels. And last night we walked past some of the cafes in Greytown, and they were all getting ready. It must have been about 8 o'clock at night. and there were quite a few of the cafes still had staff in there getting all the tables set up and the protocols established. Thought, wow, that's they're going to be exhausted today, but so excited. I get that. But hats off to everyone who's innovated in this space.
Now, you work for a firm called Planalytics, and you advise all sorts of people. Has this particular situation meant that you've, had special functions? Have people sought you out for advice on how to manage what they're doing within the COVID-19 restrictions?
Yes, that's a great question. I mean, we specialise in research and facilitation and monitoring, and so we love the whole evidence-based approach that Jacinda Ardern and her team have taken to the whole managing and tackling this pandemic. And certainly, just prior to the pandemic, we were working with Marston District Council and their fabulous team there on their community development function, and trying to give them develop some tools alongside them so that they can deliver that function really well in the future. And part of that was looking at their grants, community grants. And so then pandemic hit, and there was the community wellbeing grant was due. Applications for that were due at the end of April, but they kind of stepped back and said, do you know what? We really need to make sure that whatever grant funding we have, that we're delivering in a way that, meets the needs of communities, acknowledging that so many of our community groups, including, yours, your organisation, have had to, have been really sort of brought up short by the impacts of the alert levels and all the physical constraints, and then also had additional need placed on them by communities that are really suffering. So we are just working alongside them, working out how that might look. And it's really interesting that what's been really gratifying is, as part of that work, I've got to join in webinars run by agencies like Philanthropy New Zealand, and just listening to the araha that's out there and the real urge and desire for local government and other philanthropic agencies to really help community groups in the best way that they can. And I've really, hats off to Marston District Council. They've had a lot on their plate. They've had their annual planning process still going on, but they're really applying some really good thought to how they might deal with these community grants, not just now, but ongoing in the future. And that's not just Marston District Council. Across the country, I think we're all thinking, well, what is need going to look like, and how can we address some of the real crippling social inequities and problems that we face in a way that's going to lead to lasting change. And so that's a really exciting piece of work to be involved in. And again, it's funny. I think it's taken me the whole 6 weeks to realise that I'm not just the only one working from home, like everybody's working from home. So all the staff that we're working with at Marston District Council, not only they're working from home, and they, councils, by their very nature are integrated, kind of very tactile organisations. So they're working from home, but also everybody we've worked with there are also working in the EOC, the emergency response. So they've had a huge amount on their plate, and it doesn't matter what time of day I talk to them, they are always cheerful and forward-thinking and forward-looking. So again, another agency I've been really impressed by in terms of how they've responded on a personal and kind of organisational level.
Yeah. I think it's wonderful that we live in a country where the government and local councils are really trying to address genuine need. It's not just all about getting business, big business, back up and running and getting the capitalist machine grinding again. Yes, of course, a certain amount of that is necessary. But there's been a real concern and care for people at the bottom end of the scale who are in great need, who need to be looked after. And I know that's a consistent concern of our government, but it's been particularly heightened by this, and I hope that it continues.
I would completely agree, Michael. I think it's a really awesome opportunity for a step change in our response and to have that community integration. I think what you have to admire is, and I saw it in your organisation and others, just this absolute ability to pivot on the head of a pin when the crisis really impacted. And I think it's interesting, community groups often, I don't want to use the word struggle, but collaborating across community groups can be tricky because everybody wants to look after their people and look after the needs that they're addressing. But I think what I've seen as I look across the landscape is a real willingness for people to collaborate, to say, what are you doing? What's your strengths? I've got these strengths. Let's combine. And again, I think there's always been talk around that, and always examples of where that's happening. But I think this crisis has been a real catalyst for change in that respect. And I'm really excited about just looking at a bit of research now, kind of personal, professional research into, are we looking at the rise of the activated community? Are we looking at community groups that absolutely know that they can deliver in a crisis, and they absolutely know that they can organise on and scale up their organisation in a time when physical constraints have been at their most high? I think we're going to be looking at community groups that just are like, probably what's that phrase? Permission first, and what's that phrase where you just kind of do it and then you ask for forgiveness later? Yeah. That's it.
I know exactly what you mean. Look, I think you're right that not only are community groups being very agile with their collaboration with each other, but collaboration isn't just a matter of working with others. Often it's a matter of understanding where need might be greater. And you talked about these community grants and things. Veronica, who came back recently, and we spent there was a particular grant that was available to us. And as you know, Access Radio, we're always in need. We can always do with some money to help us get by. But we spent a long time looking at what we might be able to get under the aegis of this grant. And after an hour or so's discussion, we went, we're just inventing stuff. There are people who actually need this money for particular things. And yes, we need money, but we're not going to apply to this particular fund because we don't want to rob it from people who don't have to sit there scratching their heads going, what shall we get?
Yes. Yep.
And I think we need stuff. We need operational funds, but we have to be aware of everybody else in the community and what their needs are.
Totally. And I think what that kind of speaks of is this ability to, or this opportunity to kind of look more strategically almost at what any organisation might need to thrive and do what they do really well. And you're absolutely right. And I think that's, when I used to work with you and Veronica, all those lovely years ago, we would often talk about this kind of the weirdness of grant funding, in that you do almost have to invent stuff at times or invent need for equipment in order to get the funding to keep your organisation running, because the money is split over a number of funds and it's all kind of small, and you're not quite sure what they're looking for. So I think what the discussions I've been hearing amongst those fund givers is very much that, is how can we deploy funds in a way that's meaningful, that actually addresses not just immediate need, but does that in a strategic way, so that every step that we take as funders and as organisations delivering services to communities, that we're doing that in a way that leads to incremental, positive and lasting change. And I think that's a conversation that we really need to keep on having, because I think that's one of, I tend to be a bit of an anxious person, and in a way I'm nervous that we're going to lose all this good thinking, that the capitalist machine will start revving up and we'll all head back to work, and it will all sound busy again, and we'll lose all this good thinking. So I hope that we don't do that, and I hope that we take the opportunity, and organisations like Philanthropy New Zealand continue to keep having that national conversation, that local agencies can join in and move this forward, and all of us be partners, organisations that need funding and organisations that give out funding. If we could see ourselves as partners in delivering great services to communities to enhance well-being across the board, that seems like that would be a really cool direction to take all this in.
Yes, I do think that a certain amount, a little bit, will be lost. We can't expect everything to be exactly as we would like it, but I do think that there are things that we have gained from all of this and that will bed in for the long term. I was talking with Kieran McAnulty, who talked about not being able to travel to Parliament for meetings and doing it by Zoom call, and the efficiencies that he's discovered through that. And he talked not only just about the efficiencies of the meeting itself, but the not having to drive over the ramatakas, not polluting the atmosphere, etc.
Yeah.
There are many things we've learned, not just those obvious things, that I think will stay with us. But we're going to have to accept that people are going to go mad out there for their takeaways, and that big business will continue to be big business. But let's hope that these little incremental changes, I think that's how change happens. You know, it doesn't happen often with a big leap. We just become more, what's the word? I'm going to say kinder.
Good on you. I hope so. I think there's there was something we were talking about at work the other day, and we've all been under enormous pressure. There's enormous pressure whether you continue to work or whether your work's being chopped off at the knees. And one of the pressures we found, and I only came to this realisation the other day, is that what we'd been trying to do was to recreate the office banter environment using technology. And in effect, you can't do that. You know, you can do it to a certain degree, but actually all that little, I called it the oil in the glue, the oil and the glue that keeps teams together. It's hard to recreate that by Zoom, but you're absolutely right. There are other things we've been doing. I'm working for the Department of Conservation on some mediation on the regional plan, and we're doing that all by Zoom. And, just prior to lockdown, we were all trekking over to Wellington, huge meetings in big rooms, people from all over the country, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in the room to argue over a few words. I'm not denigrating the process. It's important. But I think what we've realised is there is an awful lot we can do without getting together. And we can use technology. So then let's make, when we do get together, really, really count, and really, use our physical presence in the same room, really use that to best effect. So I think, our concept of what we can and can't do now has changed. I think prior to COVID, there was quite a bit of resistance probably in some organisations that, working from home wasn't achievable. But I think we've absolutely shown that working from home totally works. And for some people, it's going to make them more productive and more effective, over time. I'm getting sent a message by my daughter. 1 second.
All right.
When will her friend get here? Soon.
When will she get here, Lucy? God.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, look, I think you're right. It's not that we're suggesting we all work in isolation. We've just learned that there are some options out there for us, and I completely agree with you that we are social animals and we achieve well when we're together. Nobody wants to throw that away, but there are just a bunch of things that will allow us to be more flexible.
Definitely.
I loved it a while ago. You were talking about, our government working on evidence-based methods. I just thought, isn't that wonderful? Because there are other governments that are working on mythological based methods, and I just feel so pleased and proud to be to watch those briefings and see the politeness, the consideration, the respect for other people's viewpoints, and also the acknowledgement if a mistake has been made. without
Yes.
it being, the end of that person's ego.
Totally. And I think, Michael, I think we've benefited from as a nation is that seeing that steady leadership, with all those qualities that you've just described, I think has completely mitigated anxiety for me. I mean, that's not to say that I haven't struggled at times during lockdown, but knowing that I don't have a rampant kind of egotistical leader marching around the country saying
Yes.
nonsense, I think does help because,
It
and
does,
I've really
doesn't it?
bought into the team of, I've bought into this concept of the team of 5 million. I really
Yep.
have. I do. And it's wonderful to see, something that could have been a slogan, and I expect to a certain degree it is, but it was something that was being demonstrated to me by the people that were making decisions for our country. And so that helps me buy into that and know that I am playing an important role in a small way. And I think for our kids to see that kind of leadership is really, really vital, because this is, I know the kids are on the internet a lot. They're seeing news from all over. They're seeing so many examples of how not to do it. To know that we live in a country where this is an example of a really decent way of showing leadership in a crisis, as you say, makes me feel incredibly proud.
Yeah, yeah. And it's not like we don't want to mythologize just because we happen to agree and feel good about what they do. It's not that we want to put them on a massive pedestal, but there is a model being shown there of how people can work collaboratively, but also using their rather impressive intellects, their access to information from the outside, their openness to that information. Just generally, I think we're watching government being practiced the way it should do.
Definitely. I think you mentioned earlier on as well, them being okay with being wrong at times. And I think we, as a species right now, with the internet being what it is, this kind of message that we all have to be perfect, kind of come back to what I think I said at the beginning of this lovely chat. Seeing leadership acknowledge when they get things wrong is so important, because perfection and infallibility is a misnomer. We can't have that. We have to have human being. We're human. We're going to keep on stuffing up, but acknowledging when you stuffed up and taking some of those learnings and thinking, right, well, how can I do it better next time? That's the kind of messaging we need to be seeing, and I think that's certainly something I feel that we're getting from the top. Definitely.
Yeah, of course, there is somebody taking one for the team in another country, in that if it is important to make mistakes, then there's a hell of a lot being made elsewhere. And
Yes.
we're learning from that.
Yes.
Lucy, it's been great chatting with you. You're starting a program again this Sunday, so Recuperate's back.
It is. Recuperate's back. I have nobody to talk to yet. I can't think. Like, my head went blank. I just know that I'm going to be there. Hopefully Katie will be there with me, and we'll talk to a few people on the phone. We usually have a 2-hour show once a month. We'll probably just go for an hour, depending on how many people we can rustle up. You know how I like to organise my show at the last minute. But I'm really looking forward to it. And because I remember the show just before lockdown was quite poignant, because we knew that we were heading into the unknown. And so it's really it will be cool to be back in the studio, knowing that we've kind of come out of what I hope is the worst of it for our nation, and, and know that we've got the rest of the year ahead to make lovely things happen. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting back behind that lovely desk that you're behind.
Great. All right, Lucy, that'll be fabulous. Your listeners will be so pleased to have you back. It's been great talking with you this morning.
It's been lovely.
Get back and, well, no, you've got a guest coming soon. You've got a playmate arriving soon.
I do. And I've got a meeting at 10, so I better go.
Rightio.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Michael. I've really enjoyed our chat.
Thanks, Lucy. Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
So Lucy Cooper, who will be back on Sunday with Recuperate, often does it with Katie. Not sure if Katie will be here this Sunday, but they'll be back into the normal flow of things before too long. As will so many of our program makers. We'll try and keep you updated about that. I'll put some stuff on Facebook and let you know who's coming back when. But really, it's all going to start crashing forward from really today onwards. Ramil will still be doing his program via this video link tomorrow. That's Te Wā Whānau at 10:30. But after that, he'll revert to his previous 9:30 slot, and he'll be physically here in the studio. Isolation Blues will continue. Well, actually, tomorrow will be the last Isolation Blues because I'm not feeling isolated anymore. And then I'll revert to presenting Ram every Thursday morning at 9 o'clock. Used to be at 8, but hey, who wants to get up that early? It's been great talking with you. I'll be back tomorrow. Bye.